All right, everybody, welcome to the Crumbling Podcast, a podcast about how our sense of reality is crumbling and tumbling and bumbling, and no, just that first one. Maybe what we could do to fix it, because it's getting bad out here. I am one of your hosts, Sophia Florence. I'm here with my co-hosts,
Davin
and V.
Glad to have you guys here tonight. How are you two doing?
As well as the spiral down can allow you to be.
Pretty much the same. Yeah, I gotta say.
Fair. Yeah. As a behind-the-scenes thing, we recorded another episode tonight with the philosopher David Livingstone Smith. So if you're listening to this episode now, in about 2 weeks, that episode is going to come out, and this episode's going to be a little fun, and that episode is going to ruin your fucking life. So, get yourself prepared for that. You hope you have a really good time for it.
Existential crisis.
Ooh.
From like an academic thing, it was fun, but as like a person who's like looking for a good answer, it's just like, just put your mouth guard in, folks. Swing in for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen when you're in a better mindset than rather, downward spiral mindset.
Oh yeah, get the security blanket, like get the cocoa, get the good pajamas, like the soft ones.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's the fuzzy kind.
That's going to get us back into the set of episodes on stuff that does not give us hope. And so, we came out of a long string of that. We did the Gamergate and climate change arcs. And then we're like, let's do some hopeful stuff. Let's do some things that make us happy. And so now we're doing, these episodes on labor. And this is the 4th episode in that series. Y'all listen to the one that came out 2 weeks ago as we're listening to this. Sorry, I deeply upsetting our producer by making ooh noises.
Next week, when there's like 2 new hosts besides V, you'll just understand why. Subscribe to our Patreon if you want to hear the first set of ooh-woos.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Please, if you want to hear our ooh-woos, go to patreon.com/The Crumbling Podcast, and you can hear us go full fucking ooh-woo. But yeah,
dear. My goodness.
I'm dying.
We're done.
Thrown out of the studio.
But yeah, everybody, we are going to go into our 4th and final episode on labor history and labor movements. And then after we're done with these, we are going to talk to David Livingstone Smith and then a wonderful friend of mine who is a labor organizer from Syracuse, New York. And then we're going to talk about libertarianism. So, fuck your life and mine equally. Let's get the show on the road.
What's up, viewers? It's your old pal Davin here, back to continue our series on the fucked up labor situation that's college sports. Now, this episode was previously written before the NFL draft and Shedeur Sanders situation, and oh boy, let me tell you, I've never felt more vindicated than watching and analyzing that clusterfuck. If you want to hear my real opinions on that, well, you gotta subscribe to the Patreon. No free great conversations, the good shit's behind the paywall. Along with the feet. Anyway, on the last episode you listened to, we dived into the world of college sports, namely exploring the system that mimics that of company towns. Colleges used to be able to recruit young, vulnerable athletes and give them a devil's contract where the world is theirs as long as they do not look at the fine prints. Please go give that episode a listen. Today we're going to look at the legal ramifications that turn the system upside down as of recent years. And by recent, I mean like within the last 5. So like legal terms might as well have been yesterday. Even ones that have made it all the way to the Supreme Court. Before we get into all that, my co-hosts, I have a really interesting question for you. Does the name Shabazz Napier mean anything to you at all?
Yeah, UConn, baby. It's fucking Connecticut. Come on, let's go.
For those who don't gamble on college sports like I do, the name Shabazz may seem foreign. And no, he isn't the 5%er standing outside of your gentrified apartment yelling about the White Devils. I mean, the guy's name may be Shabazz, but I'm talking about someone specific. Shabazz Napier was a former UConn University men's basketball player and one of the media stars heavily featured in the team's NCAA national championship season, even earning MVP of that tournament. It wasn't his on-the-court performance, but his off-the-court comments that really made him a huge centerpiece in today's story. He was quoted saying, "Some nights I go to bed starving."
Well, that'll get you in trouble.
Yeah, it gets the wrong people in trouble, obviously, because I feel like that shouldn't get Shabazz in trouble. That should get the people that should be feeding his ass in trouble.
Yeah.
For once, it actually didn't get him in trouble, and I can give the context of the why. I mean, he definitely got like a, hey man, can you phrase that better? But like everybody else, I had a great time researching for this episode, like the actual big ramifications. However, I got to give you guys a little bit of background context about why he actually said that, because it wasn't unprompted. In the weeks before Shabazz was quoted, the National Labor Relations Board of Chicago ruled that Northwestern University football players were allowed to unionize. Shabazz was a media star at the time, and he was asked on his opinion about college athletes technically earning the right to form labor unions. And also the kind of little thing that comes with a labor union being formed, people being able to negotiate to get paid. No one would expect that Shabazz would respond in an honest way of saying he goes to bed starving. Now, before I turn things back to my co-host, I'm going to have to point out a few fucked up facts. It is fucked up that school had to get sued to allow athletes to be able to unionize. The football players themselves didn't even unionize. They just won that right. 2, it's really messed up that one of the biggest media draws of state school can't get something to eat when he needs it. And I want to assume a decent amount of our listeners aren't really familiar with college sports or the weird environment and the really packed schedules. No, they simply can't like skip practice, go get a sandwich. You have practice, then you have class. You probably have a secondary practice or a lift. You probably have film sessions. Then you have treatment to heal your injuries and curfew, and also includes studying for the athletes who do study. Tell me, where are they supposed to find time to go get a sandwich? And not just like one sandwich, but like enough to feed their body that is going through it.
So like, funny enough, last year I had like a pretty catastrophic leg injury, which I guess was one of the things that freed up enough time for me to do the podcast. But I was off my feet for about 3 months. Prior to that, yeah, I was lifting every day, and I do martial arts and I've been doing it for about 20 years. I would eat like 3,000 calories a day and still be hungry. And that shit was no joke. I could put down a lot of food when I was in like a bulk phase. Like we're talking about a serious shit ton of food you're putting on, and you're hungry. You need it. If you are fucking up your muscles like that, you need something to fix them, and that thing is food. So it's fucking difficult. I know some athletes that do like almost 4,000 calories a day just to not lose weight. Although those were folks that were in some kind of odd athletic positions. But one person I knew that was a trapeze artist, she like had to eat like that, and she was tiny because her whole life was fucking cardio.
If you ever need, also, if it's not going to trigger you, just go watch athletes be like, what I eat in a day, or the private chefs who work for athletes saying like, what do I prepare them? The food looks really, really good, and I try like to make some of those recipes for myself. You will see it's a ton of food. And also, let's mention, even though they're athletes, Shabazz is, I believe at this time, in his 20s, so still growing. So all that, you got to get something to eat, and campus eateries aren't open 24/7, or they commonly weren't. And well,
yeah, they weren't at UConn at the time.
Yeah, I'm going to get into the weird trap that you're going to run into, because listen to episode 1. I can hear some people being like, wait, that doesn't make sense. It did if you did your homework. At the time, the NLRB ruling in favor of players unionizing was a huge win. It's a government entity of substantial power that ruled scholarship athletes have the rights that are similar to employees as far as unionizing goes. This was not the mighty death blow that some of you would assume it to be. However, my Five fans are going to understand this next reference. It was a jab that staggered the NCAA. No longer were they an impenetrable force. No, they could be beaten. What makes a scammer shit themselves?
Accountability?
Getting caught.
Yeah.
Great answers. Audience at home, write your answers in the comments section. Answers I was looking for, and you guys got real close, was being exposed in governmental oversight.
Oh, yes.
In the story, we already covered the first part with Shabazz, a national championship player who was the center of the media blitz. It essentially said, hey world, I don't get to eat, but the big bad school makes money off of me. The normal water cooler talk regarding who's going to win the big game, Shabazz, for context, said this right before the finale of the tournament, and that's a huge event. We covered it in part 1. Just think 24.1 million people watching a sporting event. Usually that water cooler talk like, who do you think is going to win? What do you think of Shabazz? Do you think they're going to make the NBA? Blah, blah, blah. Immediately shifted to how messed up that situation was. From an image perspective, this was catastrophically bad, and I have to break it down this way. In the war effort to get college athletes paid, the NCAA and colleges had the advantage of image on their side. They kind of lived and died by how they could make athletes themselves look bad. We're going to put, and I'm going to illustrate this with a game. My lovely co-hosts, what is the image that comes to your head, or what do you think comes to the average person's head when they say, that kid who has that full-ride scholarship also wants to get a salary? What do you think comes to mind of the average person? What comes to your mind? Let's be honest.
I think a lot of people think about college as, kind of an easy experience, especially, like conservative folks in America, think about, you have easy access to food, your friends are all around, you can party, and anybody who didn't study engineering definitely, thinks the party part. And then those of us that did, just remember hanging out in a computer lab all night doing homework together. But Yeah, I think most people think that it's this kind of easy thing, and so when somebody's asking for like, oh, you're paying for my $60,000 a year tuition or whatever it is, plus like I want a salary, like people get feel some type of way about it.
Yeah, I would basically say the same thing. That people might consider that, full ride themselves. Like, it's the pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality, it's like, so that people can't like have a fair wage or like, I don't know, healthcare, or even like, they think that they're so well taken care of, but these people not are never like, I know that Olympic athletes have had to like, there was a girl, I swear, that was, I think she struggled with her rent, and that was one of the ones that I remember seeing like Flava Flav show up and like try to.
Oh, we're going to get into that. I have
Okay,
that in
good.
here.
Hey,
yeah, I do have that in here.
Excellent. All right. See, I know you do your homework, so.
Right. You guys are not wrong. It's kind of a general sense of entitled. The average person thinks, why do you deserve a salary? You're also on a full ride scholarship. But now I want to pivot to a second question. I want to change one thing a little bit. What do you think the reaction would be if they heard, hey, that kid who's on the full ride of the scholarship also wants to be able to eat?
I think people might be more. I think people might be more sympathetic to that one. Like, granted, maybe not. And I think there's a certain subset of people in the U.S. Conservative that would be like, fuck them kids. But your average person to be like, hey, like we should feed the people that we're watching on TV because they're fucking on TV. Like that's worth something.
We should maybe improve society somewhat.
I love having such nice, smart, empathetic co-hosts. You're right. The NCAA for a long time was able to make athletes look entitled, and most of the time people would chalk it up to athletic arrogance. The entitled jock is a thing in our cultural zeitgeist. We all know that one person who thought because they were really good at moving a ball around or like hitting someone, the world owed them everything, right? We all know that person. I can think of like 4 of them that I know. The funny thing is they pay me and I up their rates. So, But anyway, the idea of someone wanting to eat, someone wanting to get a meal, that's different. The middle managers and real change makers of the world were staring at the NCAA with an odd look. They weren't letting their kids eat. That's caused the collective what the fuck. That was the cause of the second round of the NCAA shitting themselves. And it's really simple for one. The NCAA oftentimes, like most government institutions, do not care what the poor disenfranchised say. It's an honest rule because at the end of the day, the poor and disenfranchised could complain all they wanted, but they still need to run through the NCAA. The athletes could complain all they want, but even if they had the right to unionize, which they now do, they didn't en masse because a lot of this was dependent on the NCAA being nice, them keeping scholarships. But middle managers with kids who are potentially going away to college, white collar people who buy season tickets, who support the boosters, them seeing that a player who at the minimum should be able to get a sandwich not being fed, it does something. It makes them think, well, what if they treat my kid wrong? That's not right. And now here comes the explosive diarrhea from the NCAA because the government got involved too after this. And it comes from the great state of Connecticut. So Sophia, please feel free to be proud in your state. Connecticut Rep. Matthew Lesser. I did not look up his political history. I do not know anything about this man. I just know that he was on the right side of this one specific issue. If he is a villain in history, go talk to Robert Evans of Behind the Bastards. But anyway, Rep. Matthew Lesser was quoted as saying, "Oh, that's V. It's your line to read."
Oh my gosh, there was a paper. I didn't get it, and I didn't.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to shit.
All good.
I think you are actually on the notes for this one. It is under the title. It'll be on Google Docs under the title "Sports and Labor V2."
Oh, okay. All right, hang on. Let me find it. I have Google Drive open. Google. Right, googly moogly.
Okay. So wait, have them hold for a second.
That thing is juicy.
Come on, internet. What are you doing?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, for the next couple, have V, you can read these. And we're gonna give it a couple minutes on me, but I'll come back and I'll give you guys a signal. I'll just say ooh woo again when I'm ready. It's
Thanks, guys.
Oh no.
all right.
So V's reading the next couple, or
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, the rugged nature. That one.
no, it's under episode 2.
And so
Yeah, I've got sports and labor.
Where it says Connecticut rep
episode 2,
Matthew quoted as saying,
okay. Connecticut rep was saying, he said that he's going to bed hungry at a time where millions of dollars are being made off of him. It's obscene.
And he was also quoted as saying,
this isn't a Connecticut problem. This is an NCAA problem, and I want to make sure that we're putting pressure on them to treat athletes well.
Did y'all hear that? That's the collective sound of multiple bowels in Indianapolis being emptied. Yeah, the government was here, and so were the lawsuits. The Northwestern University players' lawsuits against the school was the first of a few pivotal ones. However, the real impact was yet to come. I'm going to take some time to break them down because these are some doozies. The first one we want to look at is O'Bannon versus the NCAA, which was decided September 30th, 2015 via the United States Court of Appeals. Ed O'Bannon, the plaintiff in the case, was a former basketball player for the University of California, Los Angeles, or UCLA, and an MVP of the NCAA tournament. The second tournament that Shabazz had won. He and other players were bringing forth lawsuits because they did not receive payments for the use of their name, image, and likeness, which was featured in video games at the time. Please keep an eye out on those 3 little words: name, image, and likeness. EA Sports had successful yearly sports games for both college football and basketball. EA Sports settled separately with O'Bannon, but the NCAA chose to fight. The major argument used by the plaintiffs was that the NCAA putting restrictions on how players can be compensated. The rules of amateurism we covered in episode 1 actually cover the ways the NCAA says you're allowed or not allowed to be compensated. Was effectively a restriction of trade. Judge Claudia Wilkin agreed and found the NCAA in violation of antitrust laws. The NCAA did appeal up to the Ninth Circuit, but lost portions of their appeal. An attempt to get the appeal heard by the Supreme Court was made, but it was denied. I would be wrong if I didn't also mention that O'Bannon's lawyers appealed parts of the Ninth Circuit ruling, but those were denied as well. The point still stands that the NCAA had lost this first round. Y'all, what do we think about like an actual court case that made it up to the Ninth Circuit, came down in favor of, let's call it a spade, workers?
Because, yeah, it's pretty clear that this is a violation of antitrust law, and it's also clear that it's morally fucking abhorrent.
Seriously.
Yeah, it is really fucked up in like a comedically bad way. God, like just watching the NCAA like lose these, it's really funny because I at the time I was like paying heavy attention to this, but spoiler alert, they lose another critical case, which we'll cover in like 30 seconds. But when they had to like backtrack and start changing their rules, they got on with like the biggest like, oh, we decided that we're doing a good thing because a bunch of other states threatened to sue them.
Covering your ass.
Oh, yeah, they were wearing Depends during a lot of those press conferences.
Time-honored tradition.
Yeah. However, with that, we're going to get into the second case, which is this is the big heavy hit. In this conversation, the next case we're going to look at is the National College Athletic Association versus V. Alston. This case is interesting because it made it all the way to the Supreme Court. It's also important because this forms the backbone of the NIL rules by which the NCAA follows today. Remember how I told you to pay attention to those 3 little words, name, image, and likeness? NIL, name, image, and likeness. Alston was a merging of smaller cases into something of a class action lawsuit. Once again, the court's cause was arguing that NCAA's rules regarding student athlete eligibility based on compensation violated antitrust laws. Taken from the UW Center for Leadership and Athletics. Spoiler alert for the ending of the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court ruled against the NCAA. Taken from the Harvard Law Review, right? NCAA 0, student athletes 2, as far as the court cases being heard goes. The real total is like incountable. But There are some fairly smart people at the NCAA, or at least the ones who know when to quit when they're ahead. Getting your proverbial ass beat in court twice more than likely doesn't make you want to try a third time. So the people at the NCAA wisened up. You know why I keep mentioning these pesky three letters NIL? Well, that becomes super critical in the NCAA's next move. The NCAA itself instituted a new policy that allows for athletes to receive a level of compensation based on their name, image, and likeness. Taken from the NCAA website,
The policy provides the following guidance to college athletes, recruits, their families, and member schools. Individuals can engage in NIL activities that are consistent with the law of the state where the school is located. Colleges and universities may be a resource for state law questions. College athletes who attend a school in a state without an NIL law can engage in this type of activity without violating the NCAA rules just related to name, image, and likeness. Individuals can use a professional services provider for NIL activities. Student athletes should report to NIL activities to Student athletes should report NIL activities consistent with state law or school mid-conference requirements to their school.
yeah, this little fun little side. Can I tell you the Supreme Court justice who like rallied the most for the student athletes? Because you're not going to believe it.
Oh, I know this answer already.
Is it Brett Kavanaugh?
It is Brett Kavanaugh. I can't.
Yeah, Kavanaugh's one of those
also-
dudes that's like
Fascinating.
weirdly, like once in a while has a good take, and it's very odd.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the rare thing where Gorsuch is good on like native rights, and Amy Coney Barrett has apparently decided that she's dealing with the environment.
that you just read, V. The state's laws was huge. Do you want to know why that happened? Was starting to say, we're just not going to let our schools be participants in the NCAA. We'll just make a California only league. Now, usually one state threatening that doesn't really matter, but it does when you recognize that UCLA is a huge basketball school. Stanford and California, or I believe it's UC Berkeley, are also members of prestigious football conferences. So it's essentially like, we're just going to take all of our schools who are big members of your conferences and participate in your tournaments out. When people don't get the top athletes who want, okay, you're independent contractors, we're not going to impede on your like ability to do this. But yeah, diving back into NIL, in the simplest terms, athletes are now allowed to circumvent the rule that they cannot get paid for their athletic prowess, quote unquote, by allowing them to get paid for the use of their name, image, or likeness. So while athletes aren't getting checks based on their on-the-field performance, explicitly, they're getting it based on how popular they are via that on-field success. It's better than what we had prior. So it's this really weird
By disparity in pay.
it's when we talk about NCAA sports, we're talking everything from baseball, which may get their little bit fair share of money, to soccer, to like women's tennis. These sports where these athletes are still working very, very hard. It's just that those are not the sports people are really tuning into. But you know what? I get super West. There's no regulations or guardrails dictating how much dollars in NIL money for their roster, because people are going to want to pay to have a competitive football team, especially because Vanderbilt's in the South and like Southern culture in the nation. Yeah, they had to volunteer to help in there as well. Another problem that we see allows for players of mediocre talent, young man or young woman or young NB. No, the problem is with the millions of dollars the school is shelling out. They want some insurance, and I'm going to butcher this name. The Ielamava brothers, Nico and Madden. I apologize if for my butchering of that name. Agreed upon LA for more money. It was reported that Nico himself wanted to be paid a ton more because he had a pretty okay season. And then when Tennessee said no and basically kicked him off the team, he went to UCLA and lost out on money. But mind you, he's reported Arkansas has just business mogul who's in his 50s screwing people over.
Due to, UCLA or Arkansas, but I feel like it's sort of part of that like race to the bottom where you'll get companies that people like the young kids, like people.
I don't think that because best believe if the brothers came from.
Oh man. I feel for them. Like I really do feel for.
For context, and it's just at the top of my mind because the NFL draft was just a few weeks. Was a couple of weeks ago. For instance, if you're only about 1% of college football players make it into the NFL. Only 1%. And even people, because the NFL is so cutthroat, college, you're going to have new stars every 4 years because like you can only stay in college for football player is like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
You don't get any those workers protections until you make it to year 5. NBA players, I think it's a little longer. I think maybe 4 years. But still, assuming you go to college all 4 years, that makes you about 22 when you graduate. If your career is cut short at 3 years, you're still in your mid-20s. And more than likely, you've dedicated so much people. If you really want to argue against that or say, like, they should have known better, teams getting paid. Like, Miami just paid Carson Beck allegedly $8 million to transfer to the school for his month. Whether that's if you're a college athlete, scale minimum.
From seeing people build things and getting out of fucked up situations. And so I think you guys will, get beaten down in one episode, and the next episode we'll bring you guys back up a little bit. And then we're going to beat you down for a good few more episodes. We're going to talk about libertarianism for a little bit. When we switch over to the libertarianism episodes, as a surprise to some of our listeners, we will be switching to a once a week model for our episodes. So I hope that excites you guys. We'll be putting out twice as many episodes. There will be twice as much content. It'll allow us to do a lot more stories in a year and get through stories a little bit faster. And so you hear probably about 5 episodes of libertarianism set. I'm still writing that. It's been a really hell of a time writing that, but I think you guys will enjoy it, and we'll get into the topic of what is neoliberalism anyway. Like what does that word actually mean? Because I think it's misused a lot, and we'll get to talk about some of the things that we brought up in the climate change arc. We'll get to talk about Murray Rothbard again if you guys were super excited about that. And then around the time of September, October, Halloween, we will have one guest coming on to talk about AI with us, who is a really wonderful scientist in kind of cognitive science. And then we're going to go over to talk about, for Halloween, we're going to have some special episodes talking about evangelicalism and the Warrens, those guys in those stupid fucking ghost movies. But anyway, if you like what we're doing, please go to our Patreon, patreon.com/the Crumbling Podcast. We have special episodes there. We have, extended part of our interview with David Livingstone Smith that you can listen to on there. If you guys really like us, we have a new tier that you could subscribe to. Actually, we've got 2 new tiers. One where you can get stickers, and another where you could get t-shirts. If you want to tell everyone in the world about our podcast, but you're a little shy and you don't like talking, you can walk around with a sticker on your water bottle or on your laptop or a t-shirt, and then you don't have to tell nobody about it. You could just have the t-shirt, and people will be like, I wonder what the Crumbling is. And that's our episode. You guys have anything else you want to plug? No?
Not that I know of.
No, not really.
What should I plug? Go to Patreon and subscribe.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we're just going to keep hammering it home.
Yeah.
Yeah, plug in your phone.
Please go re-listen so I can justify Sophia and me doing more of these deep rants about very niche topics.
Ooh, I love it.
Awesome.
I have a masculinity one, and how the right has cornered masculinity that I don't think a lot of people have talked about in an interesting way.
I want to hear this very badly.
So you've heard the rant before. You've heard it, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot. Yeah, we'll get there. We will get there. For the audience, have a great night. We will see you in 2 weeks, and then eventually we'll see you every week. And so we're like, I don't know. I don't have a good metaphor for that. Fuck you guys. Have a good night.
You're the coming storm.